Imagine, if you will, lying down tonight with the familiar weight of your blanket pressing against you, your head sinking gently into your pillow, and just before your thoughts scatter into dreams, a calm voice leans close and whispers that you are about to be carried back in time, not to the grand ballrooms or glittering novels of the 19th century, but into the living, breathing heart of Victorian London, where the air itself seems thick with soot, where coal smoke curls like a second fog, and the streets echo with horse hooves striking against cobblestones. And as you lie there, you may think that modern dating is complicated, with its endless apps, swipes, and messages that never get replies. But in this other world, in this year 1855, every single glance, every word, every gesture is freighted with rules, codes, and expectations, so precise that even something as simple as eye contact could carry meaning. So delicate that a hat lifted politely in the street was essentially the equivalent of a text message today. And here, in this world, the story belongs to her, 22 years old, daughter of a respectable middle-class family, not wealthy enough to lounge idly, not poor enough to be invisible, her father running a haberdashery shop, her mother endlessly calculating the balance between social standing and family needs. And you, the listener, floating between waking and sleep, may smile at the thought that while you can fall asleep to this story in the comfort of your own bed, she wakes in a bed with no central heating, heavy wool blankets pressing down, the stone walls of her house radiating a deep, marrow-cold chill that never quite goes away. And if you shift in your sheets tonight, perhaps you'll notice how soft and forgiving they are compared to the coarse cotton scratching her skin. And as dawn rises, the smell of the Thames creeps through her window, carrying the waste of millions, a stench so sharp it wrinkles her nose before she even opens her eyes. And already footsteps are moving, for Mary, the housemaid, has been awake since 5, her arms aching from hauling yet another 30-pound scuttle of coal up the narrow stairs, her hands blackened with soot, her breath fogging in the cold as she kneels to coax a flame alive in the fireplace. And you might pause here, dear listener, to marvel at how heavy life was then, not heavy in the sense of burdens alone, but in the physicality of it, the sheer weight of objects, clothes, routines, even the way the air pressed with soot. And as Mary lays out the dark blue wool dress with its mother-of-pearl buttons, the best the family could afford, her young mistress sits up, shivering, already aware that this day is not like others, for today the Weatherbees are visiting, and their son Thomas has become more than just a man. He has become a possibility, an inspection, a hinge upon which her future may turn. And though her heart flutters nervously, the preparation is as much ritual as necessity. The thin camise first, then the corset of whalebone drawn tight, her ribs squeezed until breath itself becomes shallow, careful, more like sighs than lungs full. And here the narrator glances at you gently and says, "Perhaps you know that feeling yourself, of dressing in something that looks lovely, but feels like a prison. Perhaps shoes too tight, or a collar stiff against the throat." And so she endures layer after layer, bustle pad tied like a small pillow to push her skirts out, petticoats heavy enough to weigh down her every step, stockings drawn smooth, leather shoes fastened with buttons so small they require a hook, and finally hair parted precisely in the middle, swept back into curls that pretend at modesty. And all the while her mind circles the same thought: this is not simply a visit, this is the beginning of being judged as a wife. And her mother's words return like scripture: do not accept gifts before engagement, do not touch except briefly with permission, do not contradict too boldly, smile but not too much, show intelligence but never too sharply. And perhaps you, drifting towards sleep, feel grateful that your own first meetings are not monitored like performances, because when the hour arrives and the clock strikes 3, The door opens to admit Mr. and Miss Weatherby and their son Thomas, tall, precise, a man whose whiskers frame a lean face, who bows with care, whose eyes carry the weight of years spent in India, and as they sit, the conversation unfolds like a dance, her voice measured, her gaze lowered at just the right time. Thomas speaking of Bombay's sweltering heat, of fruit markets, of colleagues who spoke in many tongues, and she, though never beyond London's reach, replies with poetry she has read, with music she has practiced, and while her parents and his circle politely in conversation, she notices small things, the way he nods to Mary when tea is served, the way he laughs genuinely at her father's modest jokes, the way he flinches when a teacup crashes to the ground, that tiny startled reflex that lingers longer than it should, the hint of a shadow, and though the visit ends at precisely 1 hour, as etiquette demands, his request to call again is granted, and so begins the rhythm of Sundays, each week unfolding like a carefully measured step in a slow waltz, always chaperoned, always watched, and perhaps you, listening now, can't help but compare it to your own life, where a conversation can stretch freely on a phone or a screen, while here each question, each glance must be carved within rules, and yet beneath the surface of ritual, something begins to grow, a tenderness shown in flowers brought, sweet peas chosen not at random, but because they were her favorites, and when her gloved hand brushed his just briefly, the shock of touch lingered long after, carrying a meaning far greater than the casual touches modern couples might take for granted, and the weeks deepen into trust, stories exchanged, his confessions of weariness, her whispered frustrations with limits placed upon women, and then, at last, the invitation to the Crystal Palace, a marvel of iron and glass perched on Sydenham Hill, rising like a dream from smoke and soot, glittering in sunlight, its gardens a paradise of symmetry and bloom, and perhaps you can see it now behind your closed eyes. Great halls filled with fountains, exhibits from across the globe, machines that groaned and glittered, tropical birds shimmering in cages, exotic fruits bursting with color, and among them they walked, her arm brushing his lightly, Aunt Caroline trailing with hawk eyes, Thomas steering her gently toward quieter corners, speaking low of fondness, almost daring to declare himself, and though she replies carefully, reminding him of proper protocol, the glance between them holds more than words, and then one storm-soaked evening he arrives late, rain dripping from his coat, urgency in his voice as he speaks to her father, and when the door opens again, the truth is clear. He wishes to pay his addresses, and soon enough he kneels, hands trembling, velvet box open, a modest diamond ring within, his words earnest, his voice unsteady at first, but growing firm, and she, heart racing, says yes, and perhaps you too, lying there listening, feel the quiet thrill of that moment, how all the layers of etiquette and formality could not completely obscure the simplicity of affection. Yes, she said, yes, Thomas, and from that moment, everything changes, for now walks unchaperoned are permitted, now letters are written in secret, long flowing words that carry daily details turn sacred, gifts exchanged more openly, a locket with his portrait, a journal inscribed tenderly, even locks of hair, tokens intimate enough to make her blush, and all the while, preparations whirl, wedding dresses sewn from silk and lace, a trousseau assembled with linens and garments, household lessons drilled into her by mother, cook, maid, aunt, each teaching her how to manage, how to stretch accounts, how to host, how to submit, and even blunt conversations with her Aunt Margaret about the realities of physical marriage, truth spoken in veiled words, but enough to make her cheeks burn, and all the while, Thomas confides more, shadows of fevers endured in Bombay, betrayals by colleagues, nightmares that jolt him awake, and she listens, offering her own secret longings to travel, to learn, to paint, to live beyond the narrow window allotted, and then the wedding morning arrives, gray, rain-drenched, her dress a ghost of silk and lace, her hair wound into braids, threaded with flowers, a veil descending from her grandmother's tiara, and as she steps into the church on her father's arm, candles flicker, guests whisper, the organ swells, and all she sees is Thomas, waiting, eyes warm, smile unguarded, and vows are spoken, rings exchanged, a kiss chaste but real, and suddenly she is Mrs. Weatherby, a name that tastes strange yet inevitable, and after the feast, after the champagne and speeches, after the tears of parents and the farewells, she is carried to the Kensington house, smaller than her childhood home, but bright with flowers in the parlor, smoke rising from the chimney, a housekeeper waiting with a smile. "Welcome home, Mrs. Weatherby," she says, and in that moment, the old life falls away, for now begins the new, and you, dear listener, may shift deeper under your blanket as the story softens, for the first nights are tentative, gentle, Thomas careful not to rush, assuring her of patience, and she grateful, hand reaching to his in the candlelit dark, and so days unfold into rhythms, breakfast shared, household routines learned, small quirks discovered, laughter returning, letters written now signed with her new name, and life, though never without shadow, becomes theirs, shared, ordinary, real, and if your eyes are heavy now, let them close, for the story has unfolded in full, from morning chill to wedding vows to quiet evenings in Kensington, and the truth, the soft truth that bridges time, is that love in any age is a slow learning, a tender trust, fragile and resilient at once, and though she lived within corsets and coal smoke, while you lie within cotton sheets and glowing screens, the heart of it is the same, and so the narrator leaves you with this whisper: they believed they would be all right, and so should you. Whatever tomorrow brings, you will be all right, and if this tale has carried you gently toward rest, a like or a subscribe, or even a quiet comment of where in the world you are listening from is always welcome, for stories grow stronger when they are shared, and now the time has come to let the words fade, to let your breath slow, to let the night carry you. The story ended, the world hushed, and your dreams waiting,